fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody circling as vultures. Negative, nepotist. Everybody waiting for the fall of man. Everybody praying for the end of times. Everybody hoping they could be the one. I was born to run, I was born for this. Whip, whip, run me like a racehorse. Pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip, slip. Word upon your lip, lip. Rather that you rip, rip. Break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. 'Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. Yeah, take me to the top. I'm ready for whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do what it takes. That I feel being typical. Looking at my body feeling miserable.
Heartened by the leadership of President Xi Jinping and the speed with which our relationship has progressed in recent months. This sets the stage for these important discussions on a wide range of issues where we can be strategic partners, from energy to agriculture, to people-to-people ties, to multilateralism, to issues on security. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
Soros. He has ties to over 30 major news organizations and donates large amounts of money to progress the New World Order. Just so you can see for yourself what kind of man he is, here are some of his quotes. It is sort of a disease when you consider yourself some kind of god, the creator of everything, but I feel comfortable about it now since I began to live it out. I admit that I have always harbored an exaggerated view of my self-importance. To put it bluntly, I fancied myself as some kind of god or an economic reformer like Keynes, each with his general theory, or even better, a scientist like Einstein. Reflexivity sounds like relativity. If truth be known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control. Otherwise, I might end up in the loony bin. But when I made my way into the world, I wanted to indulge myself in my fantasies to the extent I could afford.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order.
Is there going to be sort of a tipping point, a moment at which the dollar is fatally weakened, or does it just sort of carry on?
An orderly decline of the dollar is actually desirable. A decline in the value of the dollar is necessary in order to compensate for the fact that the U.S. economy will remain rather weak, will be a drag on the global economy. China will emerge as the motor replacing the U.S. consumer. And of course it's a smaller motor because the Chinese economy is much smaller. So the world economy will have less of a motor. So it will move forward slower than it has in the last 25 years. But China will be the engine driving it forward, and the U.S. will be actually a drag that's being pulled along through a gradual decline in the value of the dollar. So there would be a slow decline in the value of the dollar.
Like Thomas Jefferson, whether he was actually a card-carrying member of the Bavarian Illuminati is open to question, but there's no question in his writings that he adhered to their philosophies, which I call Illuminism, okay? And Illuminism is just like every other ism, communism, capitalism, feminism, you name it. And it generally starts off with the best of intentions and the best of goals, but then it falls under the sway of the greedy and the powerful and the ambitious, and the first thing you know, it just, we see this in the French Revolution, we see this in the Russian Revolution, and that's the other thing. When you go back and you track it back, you find that at the start, the beginning, the cause of the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, the National Socialist Revolution in Germany, the Nazis, they all were created by people who had been indoctrinated with Illuminism. So it was the Illuminati who was behind all of this. And they're behind what's going on today, because there are so many people of what some people would term the New World Order that are practicing Illuminism. Dick Cheney and Hillary Clinton. Now, everybody would think, well, they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, and in many ways they are. But they both practice Illuminism, because Illuminism's basic tenet is the end justifies the means, which means you can pretend to be anything, anybody. In fact, there are notes from the Illuminati to their members saying, if you're Jewish and tell everybody you're a Christian. If you're a Christian, you want to be a Jewish, tell everybody you're Jewish. In other words, you can lie about anything. You can lie, steal, cheat, even kill, if it's justified by your goal, by what you want to do. And that's what these people do, and that's what we see in operation today. Inherently, individually, they may not be bad, evil people, but they practice Illuminism. And that has caused so much problem, and it is behind all of the wars that we've seen over the past few hundred years. And it all ties back to money, and the money got started because as the Illuminati in Bavaria grew, and in numbers and in belief by so many people, well, of course, this threatened the authority of the state, and so it was outlawed. Well, once it was outlawed, what are they going to do? They're going to just fold up and go home? No. They rolled themselves into Freemasonry, and they created the Order of Strict Observance. And the Freemasons, many of whom were already disposed towards individual liberty and freedom and the ideals of the Age of Enlightenment, they bought into it. And pretty soon it was the Illuminati that were behind much of the push of the Freemasonic orders, particularly in Europe. Now, in England, in the United States, we had a little respite because in about 1830 or so, there was a Mason called Captain Morgan who decided that he thought the Masons were being guided by other than noble principles, and that they were being controlled by entities that he didn't think were Christian. And so he was going to write a book revealing all of the Masonic secrets. Well, he and his publisher disappeared.
Yeah.
His publisher finally came back, but couldn't say much about what had happened, but he never showed up again. And so obviously he was murdered. And the word got around that the Masons had done that because every time his family and his friends would go to the authorities, they found out the authorities were mostly Masons and that they would all cover for each other, which is part of their secret society.
Even judges.
Even judges, right on up. And this created such a turmoil that it created the first third party in the United States, the anti-Masonic party. Of course, you don't hear much about that today, but it really dealt a death blow to Freemasonry in the United States because their thousands of lodges dwindled down to a few hundred, and their membership dwindled down. And it took them the rest of the 19th century to try to regain their status. And today, of course, everybody just thinks of the Masons as they drive funny cars and they support burn centers and they do all this good work, and they're just community-orientated people. And for the most part, that's true. But what people don't understand is that within Freemasonry, there's an outer circle and a tight inner circle. The outer circle doesn't even know the inner circle exists. That's why if you go up to a Mason and say, hey, is there an outer circle and an inner circle? He's going to tell you no, because he's either a member of the outer circle, in which case he doesn't know and he's not told, or he's a member of the inner circle, in which you've taken a blood oath never to reveal that there is an inner circle. The reason we know there is because some of the most high-ranking Masons have admitted to that. Okay, in fact, one of the highest-ranking Masons, General Albert Pike, even admitted that at the very top of the Freemasonry chain are the people who believe not in the Adonai God that most of us do, but in Lucifer, the light bringer, which some people have said is the devil, although I'm not sure they actually mean the devil.
The task was to rip apart Europe's financial structure to maintain stable exchange rates, then known as the European Rate Mechanism, and replace it with the Maastricht Treaty, which established the euro as the single European currency, hence putting full financial authority in the hands of one central bank controlled by the Anglo-Dutch financial establishment.
Now, this was part of a plot which was set up to create what we now see forming out of the Lisbon Treaty, this idea of a United States of Europe sort of thing, which is that basically you're doing away with national sovereignty. It's not like the United States in the way that we think of it, but it's the idea of doing away with national sovereignty, creating some sort of a European government. And we've seen now that we have the European currency, the euro. The European rate mechanism was the first step in this. So this was set up with a number of nations involved. The British were part of it to help get it set up, but the British didn't want to stay in it because they prefer to manipulate it from outside, because this is a trap for the rest of Europe, but to be manipulated by the Brits, but the Brits don't want to subject themselves to it. So Soros's role in all of this was as a front man for a move by the Bank of England and allied financial powers to pull the pound out of the European rate mechanism. Now, this is pretty funny because this operation got Soros known as the man who broke the pound, or the man who broke the Bank of England, when in fact he was just a front man and a stooge for the Bank of England in this whole process. It's easy to prove that George Soros did not break the Bank of England. And the proof of that is that George Soros is still alive.
Think for a moment, what happens in a nation where 70% of the industry is heavy industry, military oriented, and the economy as a whole is monopolized? What happens if you take an economy like that and decontrol prices overnight?
In 2003, Soros greatly scaled back his efforts in Russia to focus on the United States.
You're not strong by putting other people down. You're strong by lifting other people up. That's our responsibility.
The disgusting impotence of the Democratic Party with the ongoing presidential election represents Soros' methods of popular subversion in the field of U.S. politics. It was MoveOn.org, an organization largely funded by Soros himself, that played a significant role in Obama's capture of the nomination, despite Hillary Clinton's clear command of the popular vote. MoveOn.org got its start by leading the charge to censure President Bill Clinton, as the fascist wing of the Democratic Party fed the media frenzy to destroy him over the Monica Lewinsky scandal in 1998. This was a setup, reacting to Bill Clinton's echo of Lyndon LaRouche's call for a new Bretton Woods in the face of an exploding financial crisis. Recognizing the ignorant qualities of MoveOn, Soros and his associates contributed over $6.2 million to the organization in 2003. By 2004, MoveOn was practically owned by George Soros. During that period, the Move On crowd heavily promoted a professional loser, Howard Dean, for president. In 2006, Move On waged a campaign against Dick Cheney's Halliburton, dropping Halliburton's stock to a meager $26 a share. While Move On railed, Soros gradually bought almost 2 million shares of the deflated stock, eventually comprising over 2% of his total portfolio and establishing Halliburton as Soros' biggest investment that year. Almost suddenly, Move On's crusade against Cheney's war fell silent. Halliburton's stock value gradually increased, and Soros made another killing, almost $40 million in profit off of the very grouping he pretended to despise.
This is the character of that demented creature, George Soros, a creature who operates not of his own volition, but on orders which he receives from the British Empire. Their intention, knowing that their globalized free trade system has come to an end, is to prevent a Franklin Roosevelt-style presidency at all costs and to replace it with a system of world empire. Therefore, those associated with Soros and his MoveOn.org cult must come to recognize their foolishness and sever all ties to this amoral Nazi collaborator. Because if you succeed in falling into their trap, then into the fiery depths of hell will they take us all.
A lot of people are arguing about presidents. Who is going to be the president? Who should be the president? Who's the best man for the job? If they're not puppets by the time they reach inauguration, they will be assassinated. Soros has been identified as a frontman of the Anglo-French Rothschilds banking group. And of course, neither he nor the Rothschilds want this fact to be public, but there are many connections to be made between these two. In Soros, the unauthorized biography, pages 5 and 6. As September 15th wore on, George Soros's confidence that Britain would pull the pound out of the ERM was growing. It had been Stanley Druckenmiller who had thought the time right for making a bet against the sterling. He talked to Soros about doing something. Soros gave him the green light, but urged his head trader to bet an even larger sum than Druckenmiller had in mind. And so Druckenmiller, acting for Soros, sold $10 billion worth of sterling. The next morning at 7 o'clock, the phone rang at Soros' home. It was Stan Druckenmiller with news. While George Soros had slept, he racked a profit of $958 million. When Soros' gains from the other positions he took during the ERM crisis were tallied, he racked up close to $2 billion. It was this bet, this single act of placing $10 billion on the fact that Britain would have to devalue the pound, that made George Soros world famous. This 64-year-old senior citizen that is not even from our country provided at least $33 million in a single year to radical leftist groups orchestrating protests and unrest in Ferguson, Missouri and nationwide, according to an explosive investigation into filings of globalist financiers' philanthropic tax-exempt open society foundations. Dozens of Soros-funded outfits helped lobby the media, bust in AstroTurf protesters and community organizers, coordinate propaganda message, create an echo chamber, and more, the Washington Times revealed. So can you believe this? He's not even a citizen of our country, and he's bussing in protesters, organizers, and we all know what happened in Ferguson. It was a violent mess, complete chaos. He's a race baiter, and he's trying to cause civil unrest in our country. And people don't see this. All they see is black this, white this, Jew this, Muslim this. These people are causing this to happen. They are propaganda all over the place, and people don't realize that they're falling for this propaganda. When you watch CNN, when you watch Fox, when you watch all these companies, George Soros has his hand in almost every single one of them. Okay, and not only him, all these elitists have their hands in these media organizations. It's nothing but propaganda. They're feeding the information that you see. If you can watch these propaganda organizations and keep in mind what they're trying to do, you might be alright. If not, it's best to turn it off. Quit watching it. It's their form of control. make a difference and lead toward his globalization goal of the New World Order. A few other events that have happened that link George Soros to him are the Occupy Wall Street and the turmoil in Ukraine. He gives more than $1.8 million to radio stations like NPR. So those of you that are listening to NPR, you are listening to the agenda of a 64-year-old non-resident of the United States. You're listening to the propaganda of a New World Order elitist. So I suggest that you find a new radio station. Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Soros' birth nation, stated that he has to deal with tens of thousands of second and third world immigrants streaming into his country and other European nations, while Soros lives free of such inconveniences in his $10 million mansion outside of New York City. Soros himself is responsible for many of the migrant problems in Europe. He is basically destroying Europe for his own gain. There's a common divide and a common double standard with these elitists. They want the borders to be shut down and allow immigrants in everywhere, but yet they themselves would not have that. They live in $10 million castles and even bigger, while the regular people like us are being infiltrated by violent criminals and terrorists because of their policies.
Down and out, and you really hurt. Oh, come on over, see what I can do. Oh, your loneliness, I will soothe. Oh, baby, I'll play the blues for you. Come on in, don't be afraid. You might even meet one of your old time friends. All your loneliness I will soothe. Oh baby, I'll play the blues for you.